Warning, the following podcast will contain spoilers for a lot of the films we'll be discussing. Listener discretion is advised. Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to another episode of Film Chums. Joining me is my co-host, Viva.
Welcome everybody!
So, in this podcast, we're going to be discussing the charming topic of nostalgic guilty pleasure movies. Yes, so these are movies from our childhood that we cherished as kids, but in hindsight as adults, we will admit are very, very flawed, but we still like them anyway. Now, Viva, how would you define a guilty pleasure movie? Because many would argue that there's nothing wrong with enjoying a movie, regardless if it's bad.
I think that the guilt is very personal to you. What makes you feel guilty about liking a movie? Because it's hard to argue that a movie is just bad. A lot of that is based on your opinion. So defining what's bad and what makes you feel guilty is different for everybody.
For me, when it comes to the term guilty pleasure, I feel like it's the only word we have for this kind of movie. Because it rolls off the tongue more compared to something like movies that are bad that I like. When you say guilty pleasure movie, it's easier to say. But I also get why people don't like the term. However, until we have a new terminology for it, then that's going to be the phrasing. At the same time, shame and joy are not mutually exclusive. You can feel them at the same time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, for me anyway, when I'm saying guilty pleasure, sometimes it's more just an acknowledgement, like, yes, this doesn't really line up with quality filmmaking standards that most people would usually look for, and I get that, but I still watched the movie, and I still had a good time. I still have my standards, but yeah.
I get you. What would you say are the benefits of films like these, though?
I would say, at least you're getting enjoyment out of it, and really that's what entertainment is about. We can argue about what's good and what's bad for the industry, or what sends a good or bad message for culture or something. But the fact of the matter is that most pieces of entertainment that come out are not going to be super high quality, or else, that would be standard, right? So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's average or below average. And if you can get enjoyment out of that and have a fun time, and if it can remind you of something that makes you happy, or if you and your friends can watch it and laugh at it and still have a good time, it's fulfilling its purpose as entertainment. So
totally, because I think the bigger crime when it comes to film is being boring. I can like put up with or forgive so much from a film if it gives me some sense of joy. I can look over so much if I'm happy watching it. But that's the other thing, is that I think, for me personally, the benefits of guilty pleasure movies and why they stand out compared to other films, you can enjoy it, but you get that slight kick out of knowing I shouldn't be enjoying this. I kind of like that. I kind of like that feeling. If I'm in a bad mood, I watch a guilty pleasure movie, because with these kinds of films, you can switch your mind off and enjoy it. If you watch a film that has depth, has meaning, has way more value, then you really have to think about it while watching it. That's what I think that guilty pleasure movies have the advantage of.
I mean, I think that goes back into how do you define what a guilty pleasure movie is for you. Because I can think of certain movies that have depth, and you could still switch your mind off watching them. Legally Blonde has a lot of good messages and work that was put into it, theme wise, and that's totally, you switch your mind off, you have a good time, and it could be a guilty pleasure movie for somebody. It really just depends on how you're defining it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. Everyone's going to have their own idea. Because everyone's pleasure is subjective. Everyone's taste is subjective.
Yeah.
But here's the question. How often do bad films from your childhood become guilty pleasures for you as an adult?
Not very often. I actually, I know this is a very easy category for you. You've been talking about you don't have to do any research for it. You've got hundreds and hundreds of terrible movies that you love. I think I had pretty good taste as a child. So, I mean, I can't think of too many. I can only actually think of a couple that I watched as a child that have that nostalgic element, and that makes them a guilty pleasure movie for me.
Roasting to glasses, yeah. Surprisingly, you say that, but this has been a difficult one for me, because I've realised that most of my general guilty pleasure movies are ones that I've discovered as an adult. They were aimed at kids, but as an adult I'll recognise that they're bad, but I find something to them, even though I didn't grow up with them. But a lot of the bad, mediocre, or flawed movies from my childhood that I still like to this day, there's not that many. There's really not that many, that's because I've had to raise my standards as a critic when rewatching these films and being like, okay, yeah, they don't hold up.
And I think as a child, when you're initially watching a movie, you don't have your standards really set. You don't have your guidelines of what's going to make you feel guilty. So when you first see it, you don't think of it as a guilty pleasure movie. So unless it's really something that sticks with you, it's not going to stay as like a nostalgic childhood guilty pleasure movie.
I think that nostalgia is so powerful, and the charm of it being a time capsule to the 90s and 2000s can really overwhelm the low quality of a movie. Like just the idea of it could be the most terrible movie ever, but as soon as you put it on, it's like, yeah, right. I recall the 90s. I recall the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Or I just really vividly remember seeing that movie as a kid.
Yes, yeah.
My first time watching it, and just the surroundings and like being brought back to that memory so strongly. Also,
oh, totally.
Even if it's not just the atmosphere, just the memory that you have attached to it is so strong.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. I have a lot of films like that that are special to me because of the cinema experience, or because it was a family get-together or something like that. And rewatching it, it brings back those memories. It's not a compliment on the film. It just so happens to be the film that I attached to that memory.
Yeah.
What kind of mood do you have to be in for nostalgia guilty pleasure movies, by the way? Because like I've said, I tend to only watch these kinds of films when I'm at my low point and I really need a cheer up.
Usually I would put on something like that if I am doing something else and I want something in the background and I'm already very familiar with the movie. And I don't necessarily have a good time sitting down and putting all of my attention into the movie because it's not a great movie. I mean, they're not great movies that you have to be paying attention to. And so I just have it in the background, and then I can just listen to it, and every once in a while when I tune into it, I can get that hit of like, oh yeah, I remember that. I liked that when I watched it the first time.
I also feel like nostalgia guilty pleasure movies have a much bigger impact in the atmosphere of 2020. Like, I've been revisiting quite a lot of films from my childhood that are not good during quarantine. And there's that little dose of serotonin when I watch it. Just because it's like, I want that bit of whimsy in my life. Just something. Give me it. I feel like a crack addict, but like that's how desperate I get for that kind of kick. And I'm like, can I have it? I mean, like, what was it the other day that I watched? I watched Flintstones and Viva Las Vegas, which is a terrible film.
Viva Rock Vegas, right?
Viva Rock Vegas, yeah. And like, it really does not hold up.
Yeah.
But the Flintstones, A, the Flintstones movies in general are very nostalgic. B, the cartoon is very nostalgic. C, what was my other excuse? Alan Cummings. So, like, that's all I needed. Just that little something, and I could forgive so much of it.
Great. Well, now that you've embarrassed yourself in front of the audience.
Oh, we've not got there. So here, that does bring me on to another question, that because we've not really talked about our actual nostalgic guilty pleasure movies yet. But for you, which is the nostalgic guilty pleasure movie you're most ashamed of? The one that you're like, oh, do I have to confess it?
Yeah, definitely the Star Wars prequel series, and I've confessed it on here before, I think. I don't like to say it because I know how passionate people feel about that series. I get it, some of the filmmaking of that movie, some of the acting, there's problems, but that is the prequel movies were my first introduction to Star Wars. Those are the ones that I watched as a kid as I was growing up with my family. Those are the ones with the good memories attached to them, and when I think about Star Wars, I think about Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen. I don't think about Luke and Leia.
I definitely get where you're coming from based on that experience, and I'm kind of in the same boat. But only for one of the prequel movies, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And it's not just because it's the most hilarious of all the Star Wars films, because it has the silliest moments in that film, the most quotable moments, and there's so much you can parody or meme in that movie. But it's not just that. So I went through a phase one Christmas where I was just going for, like, the worst. I was just the worst kind of... And it's bad enough that it was happening at Christmas, but, like, I was going for this really crappy mood. But watching the special features on Revenge of the Sith, because, like, they're like webisodes, like little clips. Mm-hmm. Just how I would cope throughout Christmas when I fell down was I would take a Christmas tree chocolate from downstairs, go upstairs, watch an webisode. Like that for me, so I get that. I get why those films can have that kind of how do I word it? Nostalgic longevity.
What is this Christmas tree chocolate thing you're talking about? Is this some British thing?
Wait, oh, I guess it is. I've just found out it's now. So we actually put chocolates on our Christmas tree, and on Christmas Day we get to eat one of them, and then days after we get to have. But this is just rules for kids. If you're an adult, just eat as many as you want off the tree. But, like, in my family, it was like you would eat a Christmas tree chocolate off the tree on Christmas Day, and then each day you'd have another chocolate. You just finish all the chocolates on the tree.
Okay, so you keep your tree up for days.
I think we intended to have the Christmas tree up until New Year, and I've just realised that this is the kind of topic we should save for next month. So
a little preview for next month's Christmas special.
Yeah. A little trailer. So yeah, Star Wars prequels. I get it. I get that. There is some. I think out of all the Star Wars films, they're the most innocent and the most. They have the most charm. And because it's mainly focused on the characters when they're much younger, and, like, there's a youthful energy to those movies, but at the same time they are foreshadowing the darker side. So I get it.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I love brooding Darth Vader. I've loved brooding Darth Vader since I was a little child. I feel bad about it. He's not as much of a powerful character when he's a pouting little rat tail having lad, but. I love the character, so... The
only Star Wars prequel I can't enjoy is Attack of the Clones. I find that really boring. I've not revisited Phantom Menace for so long, and I know I should. And I think it would be good to revisit it this Christmas, because that's the other thing about Star Wars movies, and this may be just a British thing, but during Christmas, they put on Star Wars films, but they put on lots of, like, big blockbuster movies. So I associate Star Wars with whimsy as well. And festivity.
Yeah, actually, I would have to say that Attack of the Clones, that's the one that I have the most nostalgic memories attached to.
Wow.
My family tried to watch Attack of the Clones over over a weekend when I was pretty young, and the DVD was broken, and so we watched the first half of Attack of the Clones 2 times. We went to the video store. We got another version of it. We watched that, the beginning, 2 times. We went to the other video store that was in our town, and we got it. And we finally got to see the whole movie, and we watched it all the way through 2 times. So over that weekend, I saw the beginning of Attack of the Clones 6 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that you do bring up a really interesting point, though, that like video stores for our generation it's just so important to our childhoods and such an embodiment of that era. And so I like a lot of films from my childhood just because I remember getting them from Blockbuster.
Yeah, I miss the video stores. I miss the smell of the DVD aisle.
It's not the same when it comes to digital streaming rentals. It's just not the same. All you're doing is going click, rent. That's it. It doesn't have that same sense of fun and like that idea of like just running into the store and going across the whole store trying to find stuff. There's something more tangible and interactive, I'd say, about a Blockbuster store.
Yeah, well, it's definitely more tactile when you can go and touch the DVDs and go through them, and you can look at the title and it doesn't start playing really loudly when you don't want it to play. Netflix, don't do it. I don't like it.
I'd totally say that we need to have something like Blockbuster back. And seeing as we are in the era of like nostalgia exploitation, why not? Why not? There's going to be a cash cow for it if you market it right.
It'd have to be in a big city, and there would have to be a playpen, like a bouncy castle kind of thing. I want one of those ball pits as well. So, but yeah, if it had all those things, I'd probably go.
Absolutely. It just makes it more fun because like. When I remember, like my dad would say, right, you can rent one film and one video game when we go off to Blockbuster, and you'd get in the car, you'd travel to the Blockbuster. There's a sense of adventure. I think that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
There's a sense of adventure when you would go to Blockbuster. Right. So I asked you, which is the nostalgic guilty pleasure movie you're most ashamed of confessing to. I think it's only fair that I now share mine. I'll admit that it's a difficult one to admit to. This film is a gimmicky novelty.
Okay.
You'll feel so much better about yours.
Great.
Spy Kids 3D.
Okay. I've not seen it. I've heard the legends about it though.
Okay, well, the first 3 Spy Kids movies were part of my childhood in general. Only the first one. I'd only say the first one holds up as a good movie. The rest are kind of like, eh. But Spy Kids 3D holds a special place in my heart for several reasons, okay? Mm-hmm. So, it was my first 3D movie.
Okay.
First ever one I'd seen, and like I was blown away by the idea of 3D. I remember there's a scene where a butterfly is supposed to fly into the audience, and I was like, whoa! I got so obsessed with 3D. I'm not joking here. I tried to replicate it at home in so many ways. It became one of my hobbies.
Was this the kind of 3D where you would get the DVD and it would have those paper glasses with the red and the blue?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, that kind of 3D. I tried all sorts of things, and like I never achieved it. And I think that younger James would be so annoyed at me now because I could easily replicate it with the technology I have now. But yeah, it was my introduction to that gimmick, and back then I didn't see it as a gimmick, and I didn't see it. I didn't notice the problems. And it was just Nick's new experience for me. And I'll say this as well. I loved it so much I went back again. I've seen Spy Kids 3D twice in cinemas. I'll put that on my grave. But the other thing I like is that Robert Rodriguez has this unfiltered passion for the concept of the film, and he has this ability to think like a kid. So for those of you who don't know, Spy Kids 3D is about the Spy Kids characters going into a video game. That's all you really need to know. It's dumb and it's cheesy, but you can tell that Rodriguez is having so much fun with it, and like knows the kind of film he wants to do. And it has this silly, campy charm and unintentionally incompetent moments. Like, the funniest bit to me is where they try to get all the characters that have appeared in the Spy Kids franchise to team up together. But obviously, because of, like, scheduling, Robert Rodriguez couldn't cast all of them in the same set. So you've just got this awfully done green screen of each actor, like, standing around. It's just so bad, and I love it.
You've just described all of his most well-known works, so.
And the other thing I really love about it is that Sylvester Stallone plays 5 different characters. we got Stallone versatile acting. And it's just hilarious. It's like Stallone is playing like the villain, the toy maker, as well as like these digital versions of his inner psyche, like different personalities. Like there's a hippie, there's a scientist, there's a war general. I think there's something else I can't remember. But like he's interacting with himself, and each of these Stallones are like a different version of Stallone. It's just so funny. I love it. But obviously, even though I have this sense of joy from it and this nostalgic attachment to it, I will admit it's not a good movie. Like the script comes off as like a first draft because there's so many moments and twists that raise further questions. Mm-hmm. Like there's a scene where characters want to get rid of the main character, Junie. And to do that, they shoot him off into space. And it turns out that in space, that's the next level. So they've kind of helped him? And I'm like, what? It's really confusing. And there's a scene where Junie is suddenly given the choice to bring in another family member to help him in the video game. And so he chooses his granddad, and his granddad just appears. Out of nowhere. And it's like, where was his granddad at the time? To get transported into this video game. You could have been on the toilet. It's just... And you have to play mind gymnastics to work out the toy maker's plan and how much power he really has beyond the prison. It's a stupid movie. And you can... I know you have a big problem with bad child acting. You're not going to survive through this one. So, like, you can see the direction in the children's acting. They are good actors, because, like, I've seen them in other stuff. And they are trying the best they can with the material given. But you can see it, what they've been told exactly what to do by Robert Rodriguez at every moment. Because, like, every emotion and every gesture is just so overdone, so over the top, and there's so much emphasis on things. It's like, yeah, that's not how a child acts, Robert. You should know this. You have like 5 of them or 6. I don't know at this rate. But here's the thing. I don't have the same attachment to Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which was like his next attempt at doing like a 3D fantastical children's movie. But I don't know if you've heard about this.
Yeah,
they're doing a sequel. Yeah. They're doing a sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Only 30 years later.
I've seen stills. I've seen the trailer. I'm so excited. It's coming out on New Year's Day. Everyone's going to be counting down to 2021. I'm counting down to this. It looks so tacky, so camp. I'm like, yes! Give me my New Year's trash. I'm ready.
This is why the industry is ruined. I say this every time, James.
Like
yeah, because of people like you.
Me. So, what other guilty pleasure movies can you share?
I want to say X-Men Origins Wolverine. I get it. And I don't really enjoy the movie as it goes on, but I remember when I was a kid and I watched the intro credit sequence. I watched the intro credit sequence with the brothers, and it's the montage of them throughout the years. And for some reason, my mind just latched onto that. I was like, oh, that is so awesome. I want to see that movie. That's so amazing. And I think the first time I saw it, I just kept on thinking about how amazing that movie would be throughout the rest of the movie. So I got this feeling that, yeah, I love that movie. Wolverine is great. I love Wolverine. Man, the part with him and his brother, like the 5 seconds of that title sequence was so cool. And it kind of hung on, and I get that the movie's really not very good, and when I watch it, I don't really enjoy it that much, but that title sequence really got me, and so I have a kind of a soft spot for that terrible movie.
No, I get that. I understand that, like, even the smallest details can make you feel attached to a film. I understand that.
Yeah. And okay, we wouldn't have gotten Deadpool if it wasn't for that movie. So.
Well, here's the thing. I've barely watched any X-Men movies, if I'm honest. So I don't, and I know there's like, how many Wolverine films are there? There's like 3 or 4. It's like X-Men, Wolverine, Wolverine Origins, Wolverine. Also, I don't know. This is why I can't get into the franchise.
Yeah, and I mean, the other movies on filmmaking level, not all of them, but definitely a good handful of them are good movies, and most of them are superior, I would say, to X-Men Origins Wolverine in terms of filmmaking. But the one that I'm the most attached to and that I would be the most excited to put on is X-Men Origins Wolverine, just because of how vividly I remember seeing that sequence for the first time.
So I have, there's another thing I don't think we've covered yet, but like, I think that there are some movies that become special to us as in terms of memory because they were screened on TV. I don't know if the US has this as well, but in the UK, especially in like festive times, they will screen a family film in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it would be on Channel 5. Back in my day, oh my god, did I really just say that?
Okay, great.
I'm 13, not 50. Right, so back in my day, I remember it being very difficult for me to get hold of like animated films, because this was like this was pre-internet, and I had to like make my own money by doing chores around the house. So it was difficult to like collect animated films like I do nowadays. So usually I would just record films off TV. And if I looked at the TV guide and it said, hey, there's this animated movie on tonight at 6 p.m. on Channel 5, I'd be like, fantastic, amazing. And then the film would be like 3 times more enjoyable because it felt like a treat. It felt like, yeah, here you go, here's something you wouldn't be able to see otherwise without our help, the television. So yeah, and one that really stood out for me was Quest for Camelot. And I know that doesn't sound right because it's Quest for Camelot, but that's my connection to it. It just takes me back to family movie afternoons on Channel 5. It's that's enough for me to kind of forgive it. But at the same time, I think there are some things that work about Quest for Camelot. Like I like the character's passion for Camelot and the desire to protect it. I like how it empowers a blind hero for visually impaired kids to look up to. Ruba's minions have cool metallic designs which lend to some fun action set pieces. And I like the Celtic influences. They're really unique to this movie, and I like the folk music score. But that's it. I will find little things to praise and to compliment, but I know deep down it's not a good movie. And a lot of rose tinted I have to wear like 3 rose tinted glasses to like really enjoy it. But yeah, as many people know, you can tell that there's like a set of studio demanded requirements for it to be marketable, which meant just copying Disney tropes, like the goofy animal talking sidekicks, a campy villain who wants to rule a kingdom, Broadway musical numbers, pop culture references in a period setting,
and stealing their lead character design directly from Beauty and the Beast.
And I'd forgive this if like they had fun with it, but you can tell that the crew are having to do this out of obligation, and it just comes off as tired and forced. There's also way too much intrusive comic relief. There's so many scenes where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a very emotional moment, but then you've got like the comic relief just dancing in the background or like beating each other up, and it's like, why is that there? You're ruining the moment.
I'm trying to treat myself to Quest for Camelot.
Because yeah, the dragons are friggin' annoying. They're the worst thing about it. And that says a lot. If my guilty pleasure is strong enough to put up with those two dragons, wow, it's tough. It's those rose-tinted glasses are made out of what's that material they use in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What's it called?
Vibranium.
Yeah, it's made out of that.
Well, they do have the movie screening thing over here. I actually was not really allowed to watch TV growing up, so I don't really have a connection to that. We also didn't have DVR, so I wouldn't have been able to do that anyway, record it. For me, my version of that is getting to go over for a sleepover and getting access to this whole new library of DVDs that we could watch at my friend's house. And I personally did not own any of the Barbie movies, but anytime I went over to my friend's house, we would be watching the Barbie movies. So my guilty pleasure animated movies that were kind of like that, definitely Barbie Princess and the Pauper, definitely Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, because I had that whole playset, and Barbie as Rapunzel, because I had that playset as well, and I did cut her hair, so...
When we decided to do this topic, I knew Viva's going to bring up the Barbie movies. I knew.
My first 3D experience with DVDs and those really terrible paper glasses was with Barbie and Magic of Pegasus. So
that was 3D.
There you go.
Could you notice the 3D? Because that's one of the things I love about Spike is 3D is like how often you can tell that like that's a scene or an image is only happening so it can like shove stuff at the audience. I love those bits. There's so many bits of Spike is 3D. It's like you don't need to do that. Stop poking my eyes.
A little bit. Like they have parts where the little ponies are flying through the sky, and that's supposed to be 3D. But I think my friend and I got really annoyed with the color tinting, so we actually took them off pretty quickly and switched over to the regular version.
See, I didn't. At first, when I was a kid, I didn't notice like the side effects. I didn't feel any side effects. I didn't notice how it darkened. I didn't get a headache. Nowadays, my friends will hate me if we end up going to a movie that you can only see in 3D. I hate 3D now. I loathe it because it gives me a headache, because it just darkens everything. But yeah, I can see why you would have that feeling about the Barbie movies, as I know how much they mean to you.
Do the Barbie movies look like shit? Yes, they do.
But that's their charm. That's the thing. You were the one that introduced me to Barbie movies. Because we did them for our podcast, Church of Tim Curry, and we've also done Barbie drinking games.
We did.
Which was dangerous. Because each Barbie movie has, like, the same tropes again and again, and, like, it's like each drinking game knows them. They know them in advance. So if you ever do a Barbie drinking game, you have to be ready. It's hardcore.
I don't remember how many movies we got through.
I think it was just 2 or 3.
When we were doing that, I think the last thing I remember is watching like the Nutcracker or something together, and then the next morning I found my notebook with all these pictures of Zayn from One Direction that I'd drawn for you. So yeah, I still have that.
But yeah, you were saying like how childhood films could be more special when they're at a friend's house and they have them on DVD. But that brings me on to another thing, VHS tapes. I feel like there's a lot of films where I can look over so much because they were on VHS. And here's an interesting thing. When I had to leave my family home, I had a huge, enormous collection of VHS tapes, and my family said to me, "Okay, you can only keep 30. You only keep 30 of these." And I did not keep them based on quality. Let's just say I kept them based on how much nostalgic feel do I get from them because they're on VHS. And one of those movies was Batman and Robin.
Okay.
I love Batman and Robin with all my heart. And I feel no shame for that, and I will completely 100% acknowledge that it is absolutely terrible. I just love how awful it is, though, and how unaware of itself it is. And, like, everyone, how everything is so over the top, so campy, and every actor is, like, putting in 200%. Except George Clooney. But, like, yeah, I love that. I love it. I love it so much. It is one of those films that no matter what, I will come back and I will enjoy again and again because it's bad. And I don't have that same feeling with any of the other Batman movies. None of them give me that same feeling. Perhaps maybe Batman Returns, but that's because I had an obsession with it as a teenager. So I'd say that as well.
Did your copy of Batman and Robin have one of those nice padded, like, plasticky VHS containers that you could, like, open?
Yes.
Or was it the cardboard sleeve?
No, it was proper plastic. It was proper. That's like the official VHS casing. You can't enjoy VHS without hearing that click of the VHS as you open it up, and then you.
Yeah, it was so satisfying to, like, touch the squishy thing
yes.
and open it.
And then you bugger up the VHS tape, and your parents are like, "What have you done?" But here's another one. Here's another category. There are a lot of movies I can enjoy from my childhood because they're based on cartoons or TV shows that I grew up with as a kid. And I think the prime example of that for me is Doug's first movie. And I know it doesn't fit the grounded world of the TV show. Characters act dumb or put off sensible choices just to create conflict or prolong the story. It is a very cliche movie. It's just the typical boy and his pet monster with, like, the rubbish disguises, hiding the monster from the parents, an authority figure is hunting down the monster. You've also got all these dream sequences that are incredibly excessive and add nothing to the film besides filler. But it's just so nostalgic for me. And the thing it does have in common with the TV show is that it's very relaxing and very laid back. It's just harmless fluff. And again, going back, it's one of those films where I could just switch my mind off and just enjoy the nothingness of the film. And I do have a soft spot for the ending where Patty and Doug dance together on I can't remember what they dance together and there's like a night sky and it's like, yeah, that's cute.
I have no idea what you're talking about because I haven't seen that show, but
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
I didn't have a lot of TV shows and cartoons that I grew up with because, like I said, I wasn't really, like, allowed to watch TV hardly at all. I would say the animated movie that I wanted to mention, and this is my last one that I had, was Disney's animated Hercules.
I 100 million% understand how much of a nostalgia guilty pleasure Hercules is to you, because it is mine, and I'd say it's probably one of at the top of my list. Whenever I feel down, I'm like, Hercules, sorted. Get on with my day.
Does anything make sense in that movie?
No.
From the art design to the music design, music composition, nothing makes sense. But I had the Disney Greatest Hits Volume 2, I think, and it had the Hercules songs on it, and those were my favorites. It doesn't make any sense for the story or the setting, but they're really catchy and they get stuck in your head.
The thing I would say, what makes Hercules so easy to enjoy and so easy to forgive for all its follies would be it's just fun. It's really colourful and fun, and like it's just full of so much joy and energy, and like it yes, it's very misguided in it's what it wants to really be, but it really wants to entertain the audience, and you can tell. And there are things here and there that really work, that really stand out. I do know what you mean with, like, things that just don't make sense. Like, for example, Hades never checks upon Hercules after he asked his minions to kill him. And then 10 years later, it's like, what do you mean you didn't kill them? Well, Hades, if you went to check, you would have known this sooner. Things like that just don't add up. There's a lot of contrivances, and the film is juggling quite a lot of ideas, like corporate satire. It's trying to pay homage to the classic legends and mythology, as well as Rocky, and there's a lot going off, and so yeah, it does end up all over the place. But I don't care. I really don't care. Like, you could write an entire novel about how many flaws the film has, but my reaction to everyone be like, I still love it.
Yeah, I think for all of its flaws, my favorite things about it are you have a really, really interesting team of villains.
Yes, absolutely.
But you also have an interesting team of good guys, which a lot of the times I see an interesting team of villains and then you don't care about the good guys. And so the movie is kind of unbalanced because you don't really want the good guys to win because they're boring. I think it's better balanced this time. I also think that the two little minion guys, Pain and Panic,
yeah.
they are on the line of being too annoying, but they don't cross it. Like a lot of the Disney sidekicks that they try to put in.
I think Pain and Panic works because they find that fine line of they enjoy being evil, but at the same time they're kind of neurotic because of the abuse they get from Hades. And so you both sympathize with them, and you also kind of resent them for what they're trying to do at the same time. And like
and they fit more with the feeling of the movie. They don't try to shove them in doing jokes when it's supposed to be a serious part of the movie. Yeah,
I'd say that's one of the strengths of the directors themselves, John Musker and Ron Clements. They are very good at balancing humor and drama. Examples would be like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. Like they're very good at tonal balance, I'd say. But yeah, you speak about the good guys. I've grown to love Hercules because he could have been a really awful character. He could have been way too obnoxious, way too cocky, but like there's something humble about him, and there's a charm to how dense he is. I kind of like that. And Mega is just such a different kind of lead female character for a Disney film. Because she's dry and sarcastic, but at the same time she has this really tragic backstory that you connect with, and you want her to be free from Hades.
Yeah, and I think in terms of characterization for the main couple, they work really well.
Oh, yeah.
You can see why they should be together. In fact, more than a lot of the Disney couples.
Totally, yeah.
They have traits that complement each other. And I that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's a good part of it.
But without a doubt, we both know, everyone knows, the best thing about this movie is Hades. We just know. Hades is iconic. He's just so great because like there's no other Disney villain like him. And like he's following the same kind of template as most Disney 90s movies, like this character who feels underappreciated in the position he's in, so he decides to try and take over, and in order to do that he tries to kill the main character as a child. We've been there, but it's how that character is executed. Like he talks like a used car salesman. He has this wide range of emotions and you can't predict him either, because like you don't know what's going to upset him and trigger that like really fiery temper of his that's literal fire.
You understand why he's like that, because when he shows up at the beginning, he is getting pushed around, and it's not because they're evil, it's just because they're kind of dumb.
You could argue that Hades is a victim of the system, and I kind of like I think that's what I kind of resonate with him about, is that he doesn't enjoy his job. That's so relatable for a lot of people. So relatable. I'm not trying to justify what he ends up doing, but I think he's such a well-written character. You can see his motivation. You can see why he goes that extra mile. Why he has that incentive.
Yeah, feeling like he deserves to be in a better position.
Yeah.
They're really lucky that everything that they chose worked out, because storytelling-wise, all of their creative choices are just eclectic and they don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of problems with the narrative of Hercules. I think Lindsay Ellis did a fantastic video essay on everything that goes wrong in terms of storytelling. And I didn't want to spend this podcast breaking down every single flaw and problem of each movie we discuss. This is more of an opportunity to gush over films we usually wouldn't praise. Plus, maybe one day I will review Hercules, so you'll be able to hear my opinions on it in far more detail. This is just not the place I'll be doing that.
Well, there you go. I hope everyone understands a little bit more about what makes a guilty pleasure movie. I hope everyone is duly disgusted with us and our lack of taste, but mostly James.
Jambareeqi likes Spike in 3D! Why? I respected him! Yeah, we really do hope you enjoyed this podcast. It'd be interesting to hear other people's nostalgic guilty pleasures as well, and why you enjoyed them. In spite of their follies. That'd be interesting to read. I'd like to check that out. Okay, so I've been Jambareeqi.
And I've been Viva.
Cheerio, folks.
Bye.